Hi, I'm Jurgi Urrutia from Kingston Libraries in Victoria. Today, I'm really excited to be talking to Jon Sommariva. But first, I would like to acknowledge the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation as the custodians of the land from where I'm speaking, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all First Nations people across the land. Today, we have Jon Sommariva, an amazing artist with a very distinct style. His art is always full of energy, dynamic, fun, really fun. He's worked pretty much for everyone: DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, Disney, and Nickelodeon, among others. He's drawn the Avengers, Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles together, and Star Wars, to name a few. And we'll talk about all that, but we'll also talk about the really exciting new graphic novel, Neverlanders, written by Tom Taylor and with art by Jon. So welcome to Alec Graphic, Jon. How are you going?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm really excited to talk to you as well, because we talked about this a year ago, and you said, just give me a bit more time, let's talk closer to publications. So I've been dying to talk to you. So we're finally here.
Yeah, well, it's better now that the book is done, and now that I've seen what it actually looks like, I can feel a little bit more confident and happy about the product rather than going, I don't know if I'm going to get this done on time, and I'm busy working on it, and is it going to be good, and all this kind of stuff. So
well, it looks beautiful from what I've seen so far, and I'm dying to read it.
Thank you.
So obviously we're having this conversation before the books come out, so I haven't seen it yet, but yeah. So anyway, You've been making comics for a long time now, and we'll talk about that. But going back even further, when did you start reading comics or being interested in comics?
My first memories of reading comics was actually going to the library. Funnily enough, my mum used to take us there, sort of between after school and doing some sort of after school activity. For example, I went to Spanish school after hours, and also piano lessons, whatever it might be. And there was always those few hours in between that we had to sort of kill a bit of time. So she would take us to the library, and they had a great collection of both the Tintin books and the Asterix books. So I remember reading those series a lot and just really enjoying it. And it was sort of my first exposure to sequential storytelling, artwork and that sort of thing. And probably the other thing that I remember reading really early on was some of the Disney, Uncle Scrooge type comics.
Yeah.
We used to go to my uncle's house, and he had just outside of the toilet, he had a little rack that was full of Uncle Scrooge comics, and you'd grab one and disappear for a while, and end up sitting in there for about half an hour reading this comic book. But it was I definitely, that's where I started to really fall in love with reading comic books and that sort of thing, I think.
Okay, that's cool, and it's great. I think, like a lot of people, I started at the library as well. I thankfully my parents had some comics at home, but they tended to be adult comics. But at the library, same thing. And I'm gonna ask you a personal question: Asterix or Tintin? Choose one.
That's really, really difficult. And yeah, I mean, I would say that I leaned a little bit more towards Asterix, just because I owned a few Asterix books eventually. And my favorite book was Asterix the Legionnaire, and I remember just reading that book and loving the artwork and all that kind of stuff. Tintin was obviously amazing too. That you learn so much about different countries and cultures and all that sort of stuff. And as an adult, I've learned to appreciate Tintin so much more, especially you know, you read these that Destination Moon, you know, and you realize that that book, you know, is very factual about all the things that happen with gravity and flying to the moon and all this sort of thing. And it was drawn 15 years before men ever went to the moon, you know, and he just had so much amazing information there. If you think about it in the context, it was, you know, just a brilliant piece of work. So, you know, but yeah, look, if you're going to put me on the spot, I'll choose Asterix, all right?
I think I would pretty much say exactly the same thing. Like, I really appreciate Tintin, and especially as a grown up and all that. But you know, I've always been an Asterix person. Like, it's just, they're just so much fun, so much fun. And I read those. I read the Asterix albums endlessly, again and again, obsessively, actually. Yeah. So,
Great.
Growing up, I guess, I mean, you've touched on some already, but you know, what comics were your favorites as a kid, the ones that really marked you?
Yeah, well, I read those comics very early. Like, this is when I was a kid, you know, before I was a teenager. And it wasn't actually until I was around 15 years old that I actually discovered American comics. And I already knew about, of course, I knew about all the characters, Spider-Man and Hulk and all this sort of stuff, you know, like I had the lunchbox and the t-shirts and the undies and all that sort of stuff, you know, and even a few little toy figurines and things like that. I loved the Superman movies when I was a kid, you know, used to run around the house with a towel wrapped around my neck, you know, after having a bath and trying to make the S curl in my hair and all this sort of stuff. So, you know, I was very aware already of superheroes, but the actual comic books themselves, you know, I just didn't know about them really. And then a few kids at school, they had collections. One guy used to collect Spider-Man, and another friend, he showed me the Jim Lee X-Men cards. There were these cards that came out, and I saw that artwork, and it was, something hit me straight away, you know, boom, this is what I just really want to do myself, you know, like start drawing and that sort of thing. And so I guess, you know, it was quite late in the game really, but Image Comics was already out and everything by the time I really got into comic books. And so some of the first ones I got were like, you know, Spawn, Wildcats, you know, all these sort of early Image comics, and little bit of X-Men. The first actual title that I collected was Iron Man, because you know, like I said, my one friend already collected Spider-Man and the other one had X-Men, and my brother, he started collecting Daredevil comics. And so I just, you know, there's this thing about being very individual and having your own identity when you're that sort of, you know, teenage kind of age. And I found an Iron Man comic, and that was it. Iron Man was my guy, and that's how I ended up being an Iron Man collector, even though, you know, I don't think the artwork in those comics really appealed to me that much, but I enjoyed, you know, I just enjoyed the character and that sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. I was a Spider-Man and Thor collector.
Yeah.
And then I had friends who bought the Avengers and X-Men. So I read those from them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, later on, once I started to discover back issues and all that kind of thing, I went, and obviously, you know, buying Spawn, I wanted to find more art by McFarlane. So I went back and bought as many of those early, you know, Amazing Spider-Mans that I could get my hands on and all that sort of thing. But obviously those books are very sought after, and they were super expensive, you know, for me at the time. So all my copies were these old, crinkled up, you know, news agency copies that they were selling for a couple of dollars or something. And that was like gold to me, you know, finding those in a back issue bin, and you're like, oh, $2, yes, I can buy this one. And slowly I went back and got all those comics, and yeah, they were very a huge influence on me in those early years where I was really just starting to learn how to I already knew how to draw, but this was teaching me how to draw American comics, I guess, you know, like that kind of style and getting into that sort of thing.
That's cool. So actually, you know, what's your origin story? You know, in terms of making comics, at what point do you think, you know what, that's what I want to do? I want to draw comics. Was it Todd McFarlane or you know?
It's a funny story that I was sitting at a table and this radioactive pencil fell off a shelf and stabbed me, and from then on, I just became a comic book artist. No, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a good origin there, but no, I really was like I was saying, you know, I was 15 years old. I was at school. My friend showed me the Jim Lee X-Men cards. I took a couple of them home that night, and I just copied them. You know, I just sat there and I tried to copy the drawing exactly in my sketchbook. You know, and I really distinctly remember making that decision at that time and saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is my job. I'm going to be a comic book artist, you know? And it's funny because I planned everything out. It was just this one night, you know, I planned everything out. I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 years. If by the time I'm 25 years old, like I haven't done it, then I got to figure something else out and that whole thing. So, and I, you know, I look back at those first drawings when I was 15, 16, 17, around that age. And I think, how the hell did this guy actually make it happen, you know, because the drawings are so bad, you know, and I had no idea or concept whatsoever of anatomy or, you know, construction of characters or any of the things. But what I did have quite naturally was the ability to tell a story through drawings, because I had already been doing that for my whole life, you know. There was a lot of things that would happen in my family, for example, and I would do little cartoons of that, you know, different events. You know, I had my caricatures of my mom and my dad and my brothers. They all had it was almost like a little character that I had invented that represented them. And my mom used to laugh so much reading these comics about our family, you know, and so I guess I'd already developed those skills quite a bit, and I'd created my own little characters. And I also used to do you know, Super Mario versus Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons and that kind of thing myself. That's so cool. That side of things, I think, came more naturally, you know, and it was just a matter of really learning how to be a proper, you know, draftsman, I guess, you know, like learning perspective and how do you draw cars, how do you draw buildings, how do you draw, you know, the mundane, normal things that we need to to create a believable environment and that sort of thing in a comic book. So yeah, that's what I worked on.
That's cool. Well, you know, it's hard work, you know, as an artist to develop all those skills. You know, we hear that again and again and again, and it's practice and practice and practice, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hear that it's terrifying when you go back and look at your first drawings and it's like, oh my God. Yeah. But, you know, the other thing that I was gonna say is it's amazing how many different people mention those X-Men trading cards. I mean, you know, they created waves, you know. They've really influenced a lot of people in so many ways. So that's pretty cool. So
and they just released the book that has all of the trading cards printed in it and a little bit of the background and all that sort of stuff. So it's really cool to see that. But yeah, look, I was one of those people, you know, the bug bit me at that point. So
because Disney is now actually working on a continuation to the X-Men series, the animated series.
Right. Yes, that's right.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's good. I hope so. You know, but
me too.
Anyway, so talking about those things, what's your process like? Do you still work on pencils first and then digital, or is it all digital now, or what's your preference?
Well, my preference is to do everything traditionally. I love drawing, you know, with pencils and ink and all that sort of stuff. And aside from, you know, there are what we call happy accidents that happen while you're working like that. You might draw a line a bit too long and then you've got to go back in with some whiteout and that creates a nice effect, you know, or whatever it might be. Just that the digital stuff is very, very good now, but it still doesn't 100% capture the organic feel of what you get from traditional tools, you know. And aside from that, I love having the original artwork, which I can, you know, either sell or I really appreciate original art as an original art collector myself. You know, I feel like there's just something special about that piece of paper, which then becomes part of a story. And if that story then has some sort of cultural significance, or, you know, it really resonates with a lot of people, you know, that piece of paper becomes a little piece of history. You know, it's a bit important. So I love that nature of, you know, creating comics, you know, traditionally. But when I'm under a hardcore deadline, I go running to the computer and I work digitally because it's a lot quicker. So the truth is I do a little bit of both, you know?
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting to hear how different artists feel about it and how different artists work. So that's cool.
Look, I have fully embraced it, and I work with that quite a lot. And you know, interestingly enough, I think when people do look at Neverlanders once it comes out, it's probably done about half and half, traditionally and digitally. And you know, it's really interesting because my challenge was to make sure that there was no difference between the two styles, you know, the two ways that I created it.
Yeah.
And so but in terms of process, you know, like I think even when I'm working traditionally, there's still some digital involved now, because I still do all my layouts and sketches and all that side of things, like the pre-production. I do all of that digitally, and then I'll print it out and, you know, either light box that onto the board, or I print it out in blue and draw over the top of it. I'm looking around because I probably have examples of all this stuff lying around here somewhere on the desk that, you know, I could show. But
that's okay.
yeah, it's you basically got to use whatever you got around you to get the job done, I think.
So you've actually done some work as concept artist as well. So, you know, which of course it's quite different. So can you talk a little bit about that, and what are the differences, and what do you like more? You know, like, do you enjoy, for example, getting lost in that concept art and, you know, having more time maybe, you know, to do the drawings? Or maybe not, maybe the deadlines are shorter, I don't know. Or you know, or it's like, no, I actually really love just doing the sequential art, and, you know, the comics are my language.
Yeah, well, look, the beauty of concept art is that it's the purest form of creation. You know, you're really coming up with ideas from scratch and developing these ideas. You know, and I mean, even working on a comic book series, you're still going to be doing concept art. You know, and quite a lot of it actually, because, you know, you're creating the world, the environment, the characters, everything. You know, and so I find that when I'm doing, even if I'm doing mainstream comics for IPs that already exist, there's still always background characters and, you know, particular environments or whatever it might be that you're always creating and concepting there as well. So I guess the big difference when you're doing, you know, if I'm working on, for example, toys, if I'm doing concept art for toy designs, that sort of thing, or computer games, you know, I've done concept art for computer games before. The big difference is that with the comics, whatever you get paid, it's all inclusive. Basically, you don't really get paid anything extra to do the concept side of things. It's just part of the job. Whereas with the other stuff, you're obviously getting paid a dedicated, you know, fee just for that work. And you know, the truth is that you, in terms of money, you're getting paid probably a lot more to do concept art outside of comics, I would say. You know, it's definitely a more lucrative side of business, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But look, to me, you know, if I chose that path, I could just be a concept artist and do nothing but designing, you know, different things all the whole day. You know, like that's something that I feel like I could easily do. But I love comics. You know what I mean? Like, it's just in me. It's in my blood, and it's something I love, being able to tell a story. I love being able to develop my style, and that is what you see on the page. It's just completely unfiltered, you know, where with concept art sometimes you have to go with a bit of a style guide, or, you know, has to fit in with what other people in the team are doing, that sort of thing. And yeah, look, they both have good and bad to them, but to me, at the end of the day, I have to do the thing that really keeps me going and, you know, keeps me motivated and keeps me having fun and enjoying my job. And you know, the day that you see your book printed and published and your name is on the spine and you get to put that on the shelf with all the other books that you've made, you know, it's just an amazing feeling, you know. It is, it's just so make it worth it. So I love that.
And I think that's what we keep hearing, you know, with a lot of creators, like, you know, comics, we make them because we love them. You know, it's it's for the art of it, for the love of it. Now you've actually mentioned right there, like you've made a lot of comics for DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, you know. Working on all those established characters, I know it's hard to pick, but what's been your favorite to work on? You know, the one that you really, the one that you were really excited to work on, or the one that, or the one that you thought, you know what, this is going to be a huge challenge, but I'm really dying to do.
Yeah, look, probably out of all the ones that I can think of in recent memory were probably the Batman and Ninja Turtles crossover that I did. Was the most just fun and rewarding, and you know, it was definitely a good challenge. Because,
great comic, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks very
Love
much.
it.
Yeah. I think Matt Manning, the guy that wrote it, you know, he's a huge fan of both of those properties and has literally written the book on Batman, you know, like those encyclopedia sort of things that you get. He's the guy that wrote all of those things, so he knows both of those properties inside out, and was really able to write what you would consider just a real true love letter to those properties, you know. And I felt the same way, you know. Ninja Turtles for me was just one of those cartoons that I loved so much as a kid, that just really inspired me. You know, I used to do a lot of drawings of Ninja Turtles when I was around 12 years old, 10, 11, 12. And so, you know, it was just such a, I felt so much excitement when that email came in offering me that job, you know, and this is a project that's going to happen. And, you know, they asked me to do like a little sample, which ended up being one of the covers that they used for the series in the end. And that was just me trying to figure out how am I going to make this version of Ninja Turtles fit with that version of Batman and make them work together, you know. So yeah, that was a really fun job. I really enjoyed that one, and it's still one that I look back at fondly, you know.
Yeah, look, it's a comic that, as you said, you know, it's a love letter to both of them, I feel, and you know, I think a lot of people looking at the cover and thinking Batman with Teenage Mutant, oh, what, you know. This sounds silly, but when you read it, it's just it's beautiful, and it's a really fun comic. So yeah, really loved it. So yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really, you know, putting Batman together with those characters. I think, you know, there's the obvious Frank Miller sort of influence in the Ninja Turtles, you know, and so, and he obviously defined Batman, you know, at a certain point. I think, you know, there's not many other characters that would blend together so perfectly. Maybe Spider-Man and the Ninja Turtles would be a really good combo if they ever did that, I think. Being that they're from New York, and you know, they could have some good fun with all the wisecracking and all that stuff. But
yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, you know, on the surface you think two completely different properties, but it's true. I feel that when you read it, they do work together really well. So
yeah.
Now I think it was in 2019, I think, that at Supernova, Tom mentioned to me, Jurgi, you know, we were talking about different things, and he said, I'm starting to work on a creator-owned comic that I think you're gonna really love, and I think it will work really well in libraries, you know. But I can't really tell you much. But it's gonna be with and I think he mentioned your name. I think he said it's gonna be with Jon, but he couldn't tell me anything else. And I've been waiting ever since, because I thought that's a really interesting pairing, you know. So what's the origin story of Neverlanders, and how did this project come about?
Yeah, well, I guess we can go back a little bit further, and you know, and I'll tell you that I met Tom a long time ago. Basically, I met Tom before he even became the Tom Taylor that we know today, you know. Before he was even writing comic books, you know, mainstream books and all that sort of thing. And so we just sort of we met through some of the comic book forums and that sort of thing. And you know, we always would meet at different conventions and sort of hang out a little bit and talk, and we kind of became friends, you know, like through the conventions and that sort of thing. And meanwhile, you know, I was doing things with my career and he's doing things with his career, and we sort of always flirted with the idea of working together, you know. And for one reason or another, we just things just never lined up, you know. There'd be a project that would come up and he would say, oh, look, we've got this thing happening, do you want to work on it? And I'm like, oh, I'm busy with this other thing, and vice versa, you know, that sort of thing. Anyway, so then I had just finished working on, I think I was doing some of the Star Wars Adventures, and obviously I just did the Batman Ninja Turtles project before that, and I was kind of in a position where I was starting to think about, you know, what am I going to do next? And I really wanted to do something creator-owned again, you know. This is the second creator-owned series that I've worked on, because I did Gemini through Image Comics, you know, many years before that. That was one of the first projects I worked on. And I just had that itch again, like I want to create something new, original. I want to feel that sense of pride of owning something, you know, and bringing something new to the world, you know. And it was like Tom's timing was just perfect. This message comes through right at the right time. It was crazy, because I was literally thinking along these lines, and he goes, hey, I've got this idea for a project and I think you'd be really good for it. What do you think about this? And he wrote me, it was very, very dramatic the way that he did it, you know, like, because he wrote me these lines of text. They were popping up each one. There's a group of kids. They live in a caravan. They're going to meet this guy. They think he's talking on the phone. Da, 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 you know, like each thing's coming, and I'm there going, okay, interesting, okay. You know what? Nothing was really grabbing me yet. It wasn't like a punch you in your face idea, until he gets to the actual punchline and he says, the caravan goes flying into the sky and they're flying to Neverland. And I'm like, see what you're doing here. Okay, I get it. As soon as he said Neverland, you know, and I straight away I'm thinking, you know, mermaids, fairies, goblins, fantasy island. We can do all these different environments. The Lost Boys, you know, like that's just a completely open slate. You can do whatever you want with that. It just really appealed to the stuff that I love to draw. And so, you know, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to start sketching. And I started drawing some ideas, and we can do this and that and that. And I'm sending them back to him, and he's writing me more messages, you know, and we're starting to just the ideas really started to flow. And we very quickly discovered that we, you know, there's some people that you just have that thing where you click with very quickly creatively. And it's like we're reading each other's minds almost, you know, and the ideas are coming out. So at that point, we decided, okay, we'll work on this. And then I think there was a convention in Melbourne that I would have gone down to. And we caught up and had a pizza, and that's where we sort of fleshed out a lot of the ideas at that point. You know, let's design these characters. We need this character. This guy's going to do that, da, da, da. And then I went away and started creating, you know, different designs and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how it all came about. And our initial idea was, all right, let's pitch this to Image Comics. You know, we want this to you know, we were just planning on doing the straight normal, you know, get the comic book series out, and then it'll become a trade, and it'll be an ongoing series and all this sort of stuff. And you know, little by little, we did our first 5 sample pages, as you do. You know, we found someone to color it and all that kind of thing, and we really felt very confident about the idea, and we sent it out to you know, different publishers, but really Image Comics was the one that we were going for, because you know, I think they have the best deal whatsoever that you can get as a creator, you know, for creator owned, being that you get to keep all your rights and all that sort of thing, which to me is very important. And they were definitely on board. They wanted to do it, but it was a matter of, you know, we got to go away and create this thing now. And sort of, you know, we ended up finishing the whole first issue, and the whole thing was it was happening. And that's when we found out about that we should get an agent to actually pitch this to other publishers, because we felt like it had a lot more potential sort of to be something a little bit bigger, you know. And we found an agent that was able to get us this deal with Penguin, and you know, the rest is history, I guess. So here we are.
I mean, at the moment, it's really interesting to see how the market, in so many ways, it seems to be changing, or at least the book market, like graphic novel sales in the book market's just skyrocketing at the moment. It's going crazy. So yeah, it's I was really interested to see, well, they've gone with Penguin Random House, and it's going to be a graphic novel. Interesting. I mean, and then of course you have like Ed Brubaker, for example, you know, and Sean Phillips, like they're doing the Reckless graphic novels, you know. They're published by Image, but they're publishing them as graphic novels. There are some interesting movements in, you know, in the industry at the moment. But and what you were mentioning with Tom, the way that he started pitching it to you, that's so classic him. The way he teases people on Twitter as well all the time is just classic him. He's really good at that, creating hype.
He's a natural born entertainer, you know, and so I think he's it's not that he's trying to do it like that, it's just the way that he is, you know. And so, you know, he was just typing this thing out as the idea was coming out, you know. And but I do remember, like, I remember afterwards just thinking, he just pitched that like such a writer to me, you know, and really sucked me in, and then hit me with the punchline, and he gave me no choice. I couldn't say, no, I'm not going to work on this thing, you know, like I have to work on this thing. It's going to be such a cool idea when we do it. And anyway, it worked out. So
So anyway, we've been talking about Neverlanders now for a bit, but for those that may not know, you know, what is Neverlanders? Can you give us your pitch, actually? Not Tom's pitch, your pitch.
Yeah. This is where we need Tom to come in, because he's good at that side of it. But basically, what we've done here is it's a story about a found family. So kids, you know, that have groups together, and they go out on the streets, and they share everything. You know, they've got their little community kind of set up. And basically, what happens? The last lost boy of Neverland. There's been a war. Pan is gone. All this sort of stuff has happened, and he has come to recruit some new lost ones. And he finds this group of kids and takes them away and makes them join what we call, you know, the Neverland War. So that's the basic premise in a nutshell, I guess. But the way that I would describe it is that it's kind of almost like a superhero kind of story, but hidden inside of this fantasy fairy tale type of thing, you know, because we at a certain point, you know, there was this idea to give the kids items like their suits and that sort of thing, which would be powered by happy thoughts. you know. So that's a big part of the Peter Pan story. You know, they have the ability to fly and stuff if they have these happy thoughts. So we can use that to basically have endless different types of powers and that sort of thing, with the characters. And so it's kind of cool because we're bringing it back to our sort of superhero roots in sort of a way, but really, you know, there's so much more to it than just it being a superhero book, because we've got a different sort of environment that I think people are used to seeing with that sort of subject matter, you know. And then on top of that, you've got Tom, who is just so good at giving you, he's always got something to say in the subtext, you know, like that's something that he's very good at. And I think we've got a very good, wholesome sort of message to tell with this book. And it's, you know, I love that. Anytime I've ever tried my hand at writing, that's the part that I always struggle with, because for me, I'm always like, I just want to draw cool stuff, you know, like robots killing each other and whatever it might be, but there's no real substance to that, I don't think, you know. Sometimes I might be like the Michael Bay of drawing comic books or something, where it's just all style and fun, you know. That's kind of my thing. And working with someone like Tom, you know, he gives it some heart and soul, which I think is what, you know, when you mix my fun side with his that you know, the drama and the humor and love and all this sort of stuff, you know, you get that nice mix of things, you know, blending well together.
Are you gonna put that in your business card? Jon Sommariva, the Michael Bay of comics.
Man, edit that out. Delete. I'm sure I should come up with surely I can come up with a bit of director to compare myself to, but damn it, I did it.
I mean, I don't know. I do like some of his movies.
Yeah.
Others not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, he gets a couple of the first Transformers was good, I thought. So
yeah.
The rest.
Now, will there be more Neverlanders?
Yeah, absolutely. So we signed on for a 2-book deal to start with. Oh, cool. So we're definitely doing book 2, which we're now in the planning stages of that at the moment, which is very exciting because we get to do this whole thing all over again.
I'm so excited. Yep.
Yeah, and you know, I think the first book is sort of your classic setup. So hopefully people will get to know these characters, hopefully fall in love with them, and hopefully want to see what happens with further adventures, you know, that sort of thing. And that's, I mean, if we can keep on making Neverlanders books, I would love to do at least 3, if not 5 or 6, or who knows how many. You know, I think the potential is there to do many stories with these characters and the stuff that we have planned for the future. So, yeah, absolutely, we're going to do another one, and we'll see what happens after that. If people love it and they buy it, you know, we'll be able to keep making them. So
yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for.
That's excellent. That's really good news, because I didn't know if it was going to be a standalone graphic novel or what, but you know, the fact that you already signed for 2, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, depending on how it goes, that's great. That's awesome. So that's almost like the next thing I was gonna ask, you know, is like, what's next? Do you have something in progress? But are you gonna take a break from Neverlanders to do something else, or are you straight away going into the second one?
Well, so funnily enough, so I finished working on this book back in May. I think it was around May was our deadline for this book, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. And I straight away was offered a book to work on through DC Comics. I'm actually working on a project for DC right now, and that's going to be like a 6-issue series as well. That's coming out. It hasn't been announced yet, so I can't tell you what it is or anything like that, but it's definitely I'm having a ton of fun working on this one. And in the meantime, Tom and I are developing Neverlanders 2, which is what, you know, we're just sort of working on that in the background and throwing ideas around. And very soon I'm going to start actually concepting a lot of the new stuff that we're coming up with. And the plan is to start actually working on that by the end of this year and have it ready. You know, I'll be working on it most of next year, and then it'll come out soon after that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, really exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty packed out at the moment.
Yeah,
in terms of work, you know. So
yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I look forward to the announcement of what you're working on for this year as well. So final, not the final question, but coming towards the end. Obviously, you said Tom and you were friends, you know, long before he even started making comics, and they often say don't work with your friends. How did it work out?
Yeah, look, I think our relationship has actually grown and developed a lot through this process. And you know, look, like any relationship, there has to be respect, you know, and you know, you have to listen to each other and all that sort of stuff. And it comes very naturally, I think, which is a good thing for both of us. You know, we're just that kind of personality, I guess. So yeah, look, for me, it's been an awesome experience. I've had so much fun. I really, I admire him as a creator. You know, I admire him as a human being as well. Like, he's a really good guy that, you know, he actually, he's very outspoken about the things that he believes in, and I can admire that about him, because, you know, I have my thoughts about stuff, but I keep that stuff to myself, because, you know, honestly, I prefer just to draw. I prefer to sit here and draw and be in my own little world, rather than out there fighting the good fight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I admire that about him, and I couldn't ask for a better collaborator. You know, he's very generous in this business, because really the writer gets so much attention these days, you know, and when it comes to creating comic books, to the point where it's almost completely looked over that there's a collaborator, you know, somebody that you're working with to tell the actual story.
Yeah.
And Tom is not somebody who sits there completely taking the spotlight for himself. He's always done this with all the artists that he works with. I've noticed he's always out there talking about the people that he's working with, and really giving us that platform all the time. And I 100% appreciate that about him. And it's you know, these are all things that I thought about when I was going to work with him, you know, and just in general, like the people that I like to have around me, you know, I like people that are there to pump everybody up, you know, like not bring other people down. I'm not into that sort of thing. So yeah, look, he's an awesome dude, man, and I am just very grateful that I get to be the guy that he works with on this particular project. So it's really cool.
Well, I think you know, as soon as he mentioned it, I thought it was a perfect pairing. So, you know, I thought, Tom and Jon, yes, I want to read that comic. Thank you. Give it to me now. You know, so cool. Yeah, I'm dying to read it. Obviously, I've said it a few times already. I may have to edit that. Anyway, yeah. So look, it's been a pleasure. But at the end, we always ask, you know, the creators that we interview, you know, could you mention your favorite 3 graphic novels, or maybe 3 graphic novels that you read recently, or you know, you want to recommend to others? Or they can be comics, by the way. Like, when I say graphic novels, that's like, because it's I'm talking library world, you know. We talk about that. They're all comics, so you know, 3 comics that you want to recommend.
For sure.
For whatever reason,
Well, so I'll tell you about there's one that I just read very recently. I bought it quite a few months ago, but it's sort of been sitting there on my reading pile, and I actually grabbed it and had a chance to read it very recently. I've actually got this book here. It's just like a notepad that I keep, and anytime I read a book, a graphic novel or a comic, I write it down in this book, and I keep track of everything that I've read, which is you know, it's good for me because I like to go back and go, oh, what did I think about this one? And, you know, did I like that one when people ask me about it? So anyway, that's all just to say, this is one that I've read very recently that I enjoyed very much, you know. It's called King of Spies. It's by Mark Miller and with art by Matteo, what's his name, Scalera. And I absolutely love his art. He's actually an artist that I've bought a few original arts from just because I admire his work that much. So that's kind of what got me in the door, you know, to buy that book in the first place. But once I read it, Mark Miller, you know, he just has this very good sort of Hollywood popcorn blockbuster kind of style with his graphic novels that he puts out. Yeah. After I've read one, I always feel like I just watched a cool movie or something like that, you know. And this one's like the elevator pitch is, what if 007 as an older man find out that he only has, you know, 6 months to live, and he's just going to go and take out all the scumbags that, you know, he wasn't allowed to take out before because they were protected by the governments and all that sort of thing. So anyway, that's a really cool book. It's got crazy set pieces in it and all that kind of stuff. More for grown-ups though, I would say.
Yeah.
Second one that I wanted to talk about and recommend was actually manga, because I've started reading a lot more manga recently and really got into it, and there's some really great series out there. I'm going to cheat because I'm going to mention two. All right.
That's all right. I cheat all the time, by the way, on our podcast.
You have to, you know, because three is just not enough. But there's a series called Pluto, which is by Urasawa. He did a retelling of Astro Boy, you know, the world's greatest robot, which was, you know, Astro Boy was one of my favorite cartoons, and a lot of people in Australia, we grew up on Astro Boy during the 80s when that cartoon series was on TV. And Urasawa was just told like a very grown up, almost like a detective noir sort of version of Astro Boy. And this guy is just an absolute genius. You know, he's a master of storytelling, the way that he paces everything and gets you to fall in love with a character only to then, you know, something terrible is going to happen to that guy right after. You know, it's like you're reading a story and then all of a sudden you're like, why am I reading about this character that has nothing to do with the story? I don't understand. And then all of a sudden you're like, this character's awesome. I love this character now. And then boom, he just sets it up just so you understand the gravity of what's going to happen later, you know? So anyway, that Pluto's really great. And then the one I wanted to cheat as a side mention was Alita, Battle Angel Alita, which is just an awesome series, so well drawn. It's amazing. The guy was like, you know, 17 years old or something when he first started drawing that.
I read it again recently, the original series. Yeah, it's so much fun, and the set pieces are just beautiful. The way he draws action is just incredible.
I really just fell in love with his art when I started noticing things like that, just background details, you know, like the way he draws water, and you can just feel the power of the water when it's like flowing through different things, and it's drawn right there. And you know, I'm looking at it going, that's perfect, you know, I want to steal these ideas and take that, you know. So it's really great. But I wish the movie was a little bit better, you know, because I wish that they would have told more of that story, and unfortunately it just didn't resonate as well as it could have. But anyway, the third one I wanted to recommend like an all ages book, you know, just something that's anyone can check out basically. I think the classic one to go to is Bone, you know, which is just such a awesome big adventure kind of thing. It's really fun. It's definitely a good all ages sort of comic. It's so easy to read, and you know, it's just really beautiful work. And it's just such a shame that they've never been able to really turn it into a movie or a series or anything like that for one reason or another, you know. And but hey, the graphic novel's out there, and it's like a big Bible, you know. You do a workout while you're reading it because it's so heavy.
It's an excellent series, and he recently published a graphic novel. What's it called? Tuki, I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
I think he did a crowdfunder for it.
And it's only just arrived at the library, so I haven't read it yet.
Oh, cool.
You know, it had some holds, so I always let the people who have holds, read it first before I before I do it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that as well. So
yeah,
that's
great.
cool. Great choices.
Yeah, no worries. There was there's one other one here actually.
Oh, you're gonna cheat again?
Yeah, because this is actually really cool. This is one that I just picked up off the shelf just this week. It just came out. And so like that's very rare for that to happen to me. Usually I've looked at stuff online and I've seen what's coming out and I've got interested in it. But I was just walking past at the shop and that thing was there and I look at it. It's called Samurai Doggy.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good. Like it's just the first issue. So, you know, I wouldn't put it in as a recommendation because I don't know what happens in the story and I don't know where it goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed that first issue. So maybe that's something that people might want to go out and check out if you want to jump on board with a new comic book series.
That's right. If it caught your attention, we should check it out. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're into like sort of, you know, the anthropomorphic characters and samurais and, you know, sort of post-apocalyptic robots and a bit of graffiti style, like that's kind of the vibe in that book. So it's cool.
Sounds like lots of fun. I mean,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Jon. It's been great to talk to you. And everyone, buy Neverlanders for yourself and for the library, and recommend it to others as well. You know, and thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me here, and it's been really nice to talk to you properly for more than 2 minutes, right?
Yes.